Everybody, welcome to Playbook. I am Chris Clark. We got some breaking news for you out there. The Pitt at Georgia Tech game that was scheduled for this weekend now being pushed back to December 12th. The ACC says both teams are dealing with positive COVID-19 tests and quarantining. We're going to get back to those two teams in a few minutes. But first, let's look at the teams at the top of the league right now. Of course, the biggest news to happen this past weekend was Clemson. They're no longer the #1 team in the country after that double OT loss at Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish moved up to #2 in the AP poll with the win, and Clemson dropped all the way down to 4th. And those Miami Hurricanes, still lurking. They're just right behind up there at #9. And let's not forget these two ACC teams who are both in the also receiving votes section. UNC and, yes, that is Wake Forest. Both are just outside the top 25. They're going to go head-to-head Saturday in Chapel Hill. And now, before we look ahead to this weekend, let's just go back to Clemson for a second. Something just happened to the Tigers that hasn't happened in more than 3 years, if you can believe it. Clemson's last loss to an ACC opponent, it was all the way back in October of 2017. Don't bother looking. We had the interns check it out. Trust me, it's good. They were upset at Syracuse by a field goal. Tigers quarterback Trevor Lawrence missed last weekend's game against Notre Dame as he recovers from COVID-19. He says it was tough watching from the sidelines, I bet. But he does feel great and is ready to come back when Clemson returns to action after a week off.
We'll definitely look at it and make the adjustments we need to. We do a good, crossover on our off week, so we'll kind of study each other, offense study defense, defense will study the offense. So we'll look at that, and I think there's a lot of things that we can, get better at, like always, and we'll figure some things out for sure and get better. Obviously, I don't know exactly what that is yet, but we'll definitely obviously work to get better, and we need to get better. Obviously, we didn't play our best game, but the future's bright, and I think that we got a lot ahead of us still.
Now, if they weren't there before, their win over Clemson puts Notre Dame firmly into the college football playoff picture. But as WTTV's Chris Widlick reports, the Irish can't look too far ahead with a tricky road contest coming up this weekend. Chris?
At long last, Notre Dame has knocked off a top-ranked team, and maligned quarterback Ian Book made it happen. After years of coming up short, the Irish survived #1 Clemson in a memorable double overtime duel in South Bend. So now what? Coincidentally, the last time Notre Dame beat #1, 1993, a breathless battle over Bobby Bowden in Florida State. The next week, the Irish were shocked by Boston College, who just happens to be this week's Irish opponent.
This is a great win for Notre Dame, but we're just looking for next week. We got another matchup against Boston College, which is a good team, and we know we got to play to the highest of level throughout the rest of the season. So, we're just excited for this win, but it's another win. We just got to keep going.
It was a great victory, but we told the guys right after, hey, we got some other big games to focus on. So, of course, in the wide scan and the broad way, it affected our program, but within the team, we're getting back to the drawing board and focusing on the next game ahead.
And it's a BC team led by Notre Dame transfer quarterback Phil Jurkovec, who's had a stunning season so far for the Eagles, accounting for 18 Boston College touchdowns. Nothing he would like more than to derail the perfect season for the Irish. Notre Dame needs a solid defensive performance to overcome that hangover. Covering the Fighting Irish for Playbook, I'm Chris Widlick.
Thank you much, Chris. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, the Boston College Eagles getting ready to get the chance to do something a few teams in college football get a shot at. They get to face the #1 and #2 ranked teams in the nation within a span of 3 weeks when they face Notre Dame this weekend. Not to quote Ric Flair, but they say if you want to be the man, you have to beat the man. And this is definitely stacking up to be the man. The win over Clemson by Notre Dame pushed the Irish up to 2nd in the nation with both schools' affiliations. There's a bit of a rivalry between the two. Some people went as far as to call it the Holy War. However, one message that Boston College head coach Jeff Hafley has consistently given this year is that his team is prepping for every team just the same as they would any other game. Now, his message has been consistent, whether it's Clemson or Texas State, believe it or not. This week wasn't any different. Obviously, the biggest talking point is the return of Phil Jurkovec, like Chris Widlick just said, against his former team. Hafley's trying to pass along that same message, just another game to his quarterback about treating this one, just like any other.
I need to keep him focused on what he does, his preparation, and it's coming into the facility, spending extra time like he always does, getting the game plan down and trying to do the best that he can. I don't think this is going to be about Phil versus Notre Dame or anything. I think Phil is appreciative of his time at Notre Dame and the coaches there. I mean, they're good coaches, and now he's grateful for his opportunity here that he got a chance.
We'll see how KICKOFF handles his former team when the Eagles and second-ranked Irish kick off at 3:30. That one is in Chestnut Hill. College football coaches always looking ahead, always. Case in point, despite how well they are playing. After practice on Wednesday, Miami Hurricanes head coach Manny Diaz said his program is still looking to add a quarterback to their 2021 roster. Just to give you an idea, Miami currently has 4 quarterbacks on its roster this season that are all eligible to return. De'Aaron King is in his 5th college season. All 2020 fall athletes receive an extra year of eligibility, by the way. And it's true, Miami does not currently have a QB committed to its 2021 recruiting class, but still, I mean, come on now. We found out the Canes can not only take a punch, but give one as well last Friday night. They fell behind NC State, but never let it get to them. Each time the Wolfpack made a play, they'd make one as well. They'd come back and make another one. In the end, it took a great defensive play to ice the game, but Miami needs to turn the page now and focus on ACC coastal rival Virginia Tech, who's coming off a crushing loss to Liberty. Tech quarterback Hendon Hooker was excellent in the loss, completing 27 passes, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, while adding 156 yards on the ground with a score. And that's the guy Miami is going to focus on.
He gave him a lot of excitement, a shot in the arm in our game a year ago. And I don't think he, I think he almost won every game after he took over until the very end of their season a year ago. So just a big, strong guy. So number one, he's hard to tackle. And we see like with De'Aaron, when the quarterback, when you have to account for his legs, it really changes the way that you play defense. And for me, this is our 5th year going up against this staff, and it's a staff that we have a lot of respect for. They really know what they're doing, coaching offensive football. And when their quarterback is a runner, like it's similar to what it was in 2016, which was really their best year, it just changes what they can do, and it changes the way that you've got to play them.
And with the way teams have had to reorganize practices, most coaches expected offenses to be ahead of their defenses. But with the way scores have been going up, and up each week, it begs the question, is this a new norm? I mean, some of it has to do with key players sitting out due to COVID. When you aren't fully staffed on defense, I mean, you can be exploited. But Coach Diaz feels it's a lot more than just that. He feels offenses have changed. Genie's out of the bottle, so to speak. And we need to just adjust the expectations for what we think about defense.
You can still play great defense, and just how you measure it changes. Certainly giving up 34 or 41 points isn't playing great defense, but you can still get stops. You can still play with physicality. You can still tackle great. You can do all those things, but you still have to understand that the way offenses are running plays now and through RPO games and things like that, they're harder to get them. You could really do some things where you could get them on a certain call, and now they've got more answers. It's like it's like a basketball, running pick and roll. I mean, they can kind of throw the ball 3 different ways based off of how you defend the pick and roll.
And Virginia Tech's going to be looking to try and slow down that Miami offense and bounce back from that loss to Liberty last weekend. But that loss isn't nearly as bad as it sounds. Flames are now 7-0 and up to 22nd in the country. WFXR's Jermaine Farrell covering the Hokies, who aren't making any excuses and just looking to get another W. Jermaine?
The Virginia Tech Hokies, fresh off their ACC win over the Louisville Cardinals, return home for their only non-conference game of the season. Tech hosting the 25th-ranked Liberty Flames last Saturday, and Alex Barbier's 51-yard field goal with 1 second remaining overshadowed a great game by Virginia Tech quarterback Hendon Hooker and propelled the 25th-ranked Liberty Flames to a 38-35 upset of the Hokies in a non-conference game Saturday at Lane Stadium. Now, with the loss, Tech fell to 4-3 overall. Liberty moved to 7-0 and extended their winning streak to 9 games going back to last season. Barbier's kick punctuated a wild ending for the Flames, who rallied from a 2014 halftime deficit. They moved to 7-0 for the first time in program history, and we'll talk more about the finish to the game in a second. Meanwhile, the star of the Liberty game for Virginia Tech was quarterback Hendon Hooker. He was 20 for 27 throwing, 217 yards, 3 touchdowns, and on the ground he ran for 156 yards and another score. It's been days since Virginia Tech fell to Liberty in Blacksburg thanks to that last-second field goal, winning it for the Flames. And the ending still haunts head coach Justin Fuente for Virginia Tech. Just moments before Alex Barbier's 51-yard kick, Tech was able to block Liberty's 59-yard attempt with Jermaine Waller running it back the other way for a touchdown. But that score didn't count because Justin Fuente called a timeout right before the kick, leading to the Hokies' 3rd defeat this season. Fuente calling the wild finish, quote, the perfect storm of a difficult situation.
No, I don't feel better. I don't feel better at all. I mean, it's just it's a hard one, you know. It doesn't get easier, but you got to turn the page. Like if you sit around and mope about it, then you know you're not going to be able to put your best effort forward. But no, it's not. I don't feel better about it. No.
Now, Tech got off to a 2-0 start on the season, and from that point, they have alternated with a win and a loss, and they have a 2-3 record since that 2-0 start. The Hokies still understand about the trials of a football season, as the Hokies next on deck have the 9th-ranked Miami Hurricanes coming to Lane Stadium for a Saturday afternoon kickoff at noon.
You know, every year you're going to know there's going to be ups and downs in the schedule. We play a tough schedule in the ACC, but try not to really think about trying to make too many excuses for the things that we didn't have. It was kind of an equal playing field. Some teams had a couple of practices in the spring. Some teams had nothing. We try to just put all that to the side and just try to go out every week and try to get a W no matter what.
Virginia Tech and Miami, they have met 37 times previously, with the Hurricanes owning an advantage, winning 22 times to the Hokies 15. Since moving to the ACC in 2004, Tech, they are 9-7 against the Canes, and they're coming off a thrilling 42-35 victory in Miami Gardens last season. Covering the Virginia Tech Hokies, I'm Jermaine Farrell.
Thank you, Jermaine. Love the finish with a flourish all the time. This is one of those games where both teams are going to feel like a win is crucial for the rest of their seasons. Kickoff in Blacksburg Saturday at noon. And it's been an up and down season for North Carolina. They're now out of the top 25 after being ranked as high as 5th about a month ago. You remember that? It didn't seem like that long ago. But whatever happens this season, the Tar Heels now have the victory bell. Quarterback Sam Howell and the two-headed rushing attack of Javonte Williams and Micah Carter led the Heels to a 56-24 leveling of Duke in Durham last week. Williams put up 151 yards and 3 touchdowns on just 12 carries. It's not a bad average. Up next for UNC is another game against a North Carolina rival, with Wake Forest coming into Chapel Hill on a 4-game win streak.
You want to beat the people that are closest to your school, because they're the ones that alumni, the supporters, the students all are buddies with their supporters and their students. And that's why it's called rivalries. And that's why we started the, quote, state championship before, because it was the teams in the state that you had to beat. Because I've always felt like unless you can win at home in your own state, in your own area, then how can you start talking about winning nationally? You got to be the best team in your state before you can be the best team in the country.
Making some good points. Wake Forest going to be looking to stake their own claim to the title of Best in North Carolina Saturday. And as WGHP's Danny Harden reports, it'll be a battle between old friends at the quarterback position. Danny?
Wake Forest coming off a bye week and riding a 4-game win streak. And we're going to see a Sam I Am quarterback matchup on Saturday. Deacons QB Sam Hartman against the Tar Heels Sam Howell. Friends from their days playing high school ball in the Charlotte area.
It'd be cool to see him play, and obviously just wish the best of luck to him. Obviously a friend of mine, but once we step on the field, I'm sure he'd be saying the same thing, that it's now the friendship's off. So, but it'll be cool to see him. He's obviously a great player, and it's always fun to watch somebody at your position be excel and make plays. But hopefully we'll watch him next week make plays, not this week.
Hartman has led a Deacons offense that has done an incredible job taking care of the football. This season, Wake Forest leads the country in turnover ratio. Sam has thrown no interceptions. The Deacons have 0 fumbles lost, and the defense, well, they've forced 15 turnovers. Do the math there, that's a plus 14. No other team in the country is even close to that. The Deacons know they're facing a good Tar Heels team. Wake isn't concerned about being emotionally ready for this in-state rivalry game, but sometimes you just never know in this crazy 2020 year.
And it's not the bye week, it's just the fatigue of the season. It's been over 4 months now of pretty much lockdown football isolation, and it's certainly been worth it. But there's a fatigue that's involved with this that you hope you hope out of the bye week the batteries are charged and they're ready to go, but you never know.
We will find out Saturday, a high noon kickoff in Chapel Hill. Deacons and Tar Heels. Covering Wake Forest football, I'm Danny Harnden.
Thank you, Danny. Remember, both of these teams just outside the top 25, so the winner could very well have a number beside their name next week. That's a noon kickoff, by the way, in Chapel Hill for all those wondering. And after winning 3 in a row, NC State has dropped their last 2. Although both losses came to teams in the top 15 at the time. The Wolfpack are back under the lights at home this weekend. And as WNCN's Todd Gibson reports, it's something NC State has been asking for years. Todd?
Through the years, NC State has clamored for more night games at Carter Finley Stadium. Enough with the noon kickoffs. This season, the Pack is getting its wish. On Saturday, NC State will play its second of 3 straight home games under the lights at Carter Finley Stadium. Trouble is, only 4,000 fans will be there to see it. The Wolfpack sure could have used a full house against Miami.
I mean, our home field advantage in a night game is as good as anybody's in the country. So, yeah, I think it could have helped our energy on defense. Probably would have helped, hurt them offensively with cadence, and they changed a lot of plays at the line of scrimmage in that game. That would have been challenging for them to do. So there's a lot of things, that as a home team we're losing out on with the COVID-19 part of this, but both teams have the same thing.
This isn't like a normal year where we can have the stands full. But at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to us executing. And we saw that we didn't do that in the fourth quarter and things like that. So, it would have helped us definitely. But as an offense and as a team, we just have to execute better, and then we'll be fine.
Well, I definitely believe that the fan base would have been going crazy at the time because of the position that we was in. And so, yeah, I think it kind of affected. I don't know if it would have affected the play or what happened, but I think it would have affected the game overall.
Wolfpack players say the fans that have been able to get in have been fantastic. Still, it's not the same as having a full student section and 58,000 screaming fans under the lights at Carter Finley Stadium. Following the Wolfpack in Raleigh, I'm Todd Gibson.
Thank you, Todd. Kickoff at Carter Finley Stadium, like you said, Saturday night, 7:30. And WNBB's Emma Stamps is taking a closer look at the Wolfpack's opponent, Florida State, who are looking for more roster changes ahead of this one.
Florida State Seminoles are now 2-5 on the year after falling to Pitt at Doak Campbell Stadium. On Wednesday, head coach Mike Norvell announcing some major changes to the Noles roster as they look ahead to NC State. Receiver Tamarion Terry is no longer with the program. The team's best receiver said in a tweet that it breaks his heart to not finish what he started at Florida State, saying he decided it was the best choice for him to use this time to heal and recover. It was also announced that QB James Blackman will transfer when the semester ends. A total of 16 players have exited the program since Norvell took over, and there are players out with injury too. Defensive tackle Marvin Wilson is out for the season with a leg injury.
I never think about attrition. It's not something that, I don't, from the day that I got the job here, these are all my players. They're all guys that I'm responsible for. It's my job and to help them develop and grow in every aspect. I don't want to lose any player. And, there's guys that we've had to go in different directions with, due to whatever circumstance or decisions that are made. But I can promise you, I want guys that are here that are 100% invested in growth.
We'll see if the Noles can overcome all of those obstacles and come up with a win on the road Saturday. Reporting on FSU, I'm Emma Stamps.
Thank you, Emma. And after last week's game between Louisville and Virginia was postponed because of COVID-19, both teams ready to hit the field this week in Charlottesville. WEHT's Randall Parmley is covering the visiting Cardinals. Randall?
After an unscheduled week off, Louisville returns this weekend. The Cards, of course, were forced to shut down last week due to a COVID outbreak. Their game with Virginia pushed back to this weekend. So in essence, Louisville had 2 weeks to prepare for the Cavaliers. Head coach Scott Satterfield says the challenge during this extra week of preparation was to keep things simple.
You don't want to overanalyze an opponent. I've never been in favor of that, even when you've had a long time or 2 weeks to prepare for a team. You don't ever want to overanalyze it, because I think when it ends up being information overload, you start putting too many plays in offensively, defensively, and in the kicking game. And for us, so we didn't do any of that. We kind of, you watch film and you can just keep your mind fresh about who you're getting ready to play and about things that are going on. But really you just stick with what you had in the game plan.
The Cards of Virginia kick at 3:30 Saturday afternoon in Charlottesville. Louisville will try to improve on its 2-5 record. That's pretty much a must-win game in terms of bowl bids for the Cards. Covering the Louisville Cardinals, I'm Randall Parmley.
Good stuff, Randall. You heard him. This one gets started at 3:30 Saturday afternoon. And now let's send it over to WRIC's Natalie Calabit covering the Cavaliers. Natalie?
The Virginia Cavaliers got an unexpected Saturday off due to COVID-19 cases at Louisville. Bronco Mendenhall and his team took advantage of this extra time.
It was nice to have a break, actually. Even though we were expecting our bye week to be this weekend, we received, or basically we executed a kind of a mini bye week. So just a subtle change in routine, a couple days off.
Because the Cavaliers already had a few days of Louisville preparation under their belts, Mendenhall and his players were able to relax a bit more than usual.
It really is what you make it with your team, and so I think it was helpful from, if nothing else, just from a routine breaker, freshness, and then return to play for the final stretch. As few a days as it was, it still helped.
As for Mendenhall, he got a rare opportunity to enjoy games instead of breaking them down.
I was intrigued just with the ACC, so I watched a couple of those games, not all of them, but some of those games, and I did watch the entire Notre Dame-Clemson game, which might be the first complete college game I've watched in years. So, man, what a great game.
Virginia and Louisville will try again at 3:30 on Saturday in Charlottesville. Covering Virginia, I'm Natalie Calabat.
Thank you, Natalie. And like we said at the top of the show, the Atlantic Coast Conference announced today that the Pitt at Georgia Tech football game is going to be rescheduled for Saturday, December 12th. The game was originally scheduled to be played Saturday, November 14th. Now, the rescheduling follows positive tests, subsequent quarantining, and contact tracing within not only the Georgia Tech, but also the Pitt football teams as well. About last week, Nick Patty had 2 touchdown runs. Kenny Pickett added a 10-yard TD run, and Pittsburgh capitalized on short fields to take down Florida State 41-17 Saturday night. That snapped the 4-game losing streak. Pickett returning to the lineup after missing 2 games due to an ankle injury didn't hurt. The senior completed 21 of 27 for 210 yards, connecting with freshman Jordan Addison at season-high 11 times for 127 yards. The Panthers scored 4 touchdowns with the benefit of short fields, completing drives of 32, 41, 47, and 20 yards. 2 interceptions as well as a pair of 4th down stops helped Pitt's offense. Brandon Hill also had a 50-yard interception return for a touchdown in the 4th quarter. Add it all up in the Panthers' 3rd pick of the game. It's a team, especially on defense. I mean, it looks a lot different than the one we saw in training camp in late July and early August, and says a ton about the trajectory of the program, that they can insert a lot of young guys to replace the upperclassmen and win a game by 24 points.
You get more and more confidence. You know, we talked about it, after the BC game that, we wore Jason Pinnock out, and and that's a coaching error. And then we got A.J. Wood some reps, and all of a sudden now you're going to, and Eric Howard, I mean, all along, guys, he's been kind of DeMar's backup. He plays the star position on 3rd down. He plays corner. He's like the utility guy in everything, and I feel bad sometimes, but he starts at corner. He made some plays out there and covered Terry, their best wideout a few times. I'm like, he's not having any problems. He's not running away. So, I mean, you just find out different things every week if you recruit the right guys that have talent.
Now, these Panthers may have been aided by roughing it just a little bit. Stay with me. Teams nowadays have the very best of everything. Top-of-the-line accommodations, food, training tables, I mean, everything. I'd say I'm all for it. But there is something that brings people together when they have to, go through some stuff. Not to the point of suffering, per se, or have it be detrimental to the overall cause, but this past week, Pitt, they had to improvise when it came to accommodations at their hotel. It was not quite the same as the places in Boston and Miami were before that there. Here's Coach. He'll explain.
There was a Holiday Inn down in Tallahassee, and we had big tents outside. We were eating in the parking lot with it, under a tent with fans blowing. It was interesting. But our kids, like I said, our kids didn't care. We had pregame out there, same thing, pregame meal in a tent. I've never done that in 30-some years of coaching, so it was good. The meeting rooms were too small. The offense met in a tent outside Friday night. Which is always interesting, and I was with the offense that night, and I didn't feel anything, but some of the guys were talking about like they were getting bitten up out there.
Hey man, adapt and overcome is what you do. Okay, come on now. Now, when Georgia Tech gets back on the field, they're going to be looking to end a 3-game losing streak, but the skid wasn't exactly full of bad losses per se. And as WSAV's Connor Delpreet reports, the Yellow Jackets are ready to turn some heads for the rest of the season. Connor.
Georgia Tech football got a much-needed off week. This time last month, the Yellow Jackets were riding high from a pretty dominant win over Louisville. But then a brutal stretch of games against then #1 Clemson, a sneaky good Boston College team, and Notre Dame, the team that just knocked off Clemson, made them 0-3 in their last 3 matchups. So even in the midst of that losing streak, Head coach Jeff Collins stays positive.
I'm just so proud of this group of guys, how they're able to stay focused, follow protocols, be great teammates, come in and work like they do, be great dudes.
Gonna need some dudes like Jeff Sims to step up on Saturday night. He'll face a Panthers team that gets to the quarterback better than any team in the country.
We played 2 of the top 4 teams in the country and got better every single week. I'm really proud of the way Jeff has played, the way he's continued to develop within this program.
Speaking of QBs, Pitt's Kenny Pickett returned from injury last week and helped deliver a win. The senior QB is a game changer whenever he steps on the field.
There's a different wrinkle or many wrinkles every single week, and you know, he's got a tremendous arm, a tremendous feel for where to go with the football. He's got talent, he's got weapons around him, and he knows how to distribute the ball and distribute it on time.
Will Tech keep Pickett under wraps and stop the losing skid, or will Pitt keep the good times rolling with a second straight road win? With a look at Georgia Tech, I'm Connor Delpreet.
We're now less than 2 weeks away from the first look at the college football rankings for the playoffs. Yeah, last week's game at the top of the ACC standings is shaking things up in the conference. So let's bring on Jason Logan from Covers.com to help break things down here. Jason, Notre Dame knocked off a Trevor Lawrence-less Clemson last weekend. How's that changed up the ACC futures as well as the odds to win the national title for these two teams?
Yeah, Clemson was around plus 250 a favorite heading into last week. Notre Dame was around plus 2,000 odds. And then in the wake of that upset now, we have Clemson at plus 450. They're behind Ohio State and Alabama at plus 150 apiece there for the national title odds. And then Notre Dame hurdles up here. They're plus 1,600 to win the national title. Now, if we look at the ACC futures, Clemson's still a pretty hefty favorite, minus 550 to win the conference. Notre Dame coming back at plus 350. And given any possible letdowns or speed bumps along the way, it looks like we're possibly going to get a rematch here in Charlotte for that conference title game.
Sticking with the Irish, Notre Dame leaves South Bend for a battle with Boston College. How are the betting markets treating the Golden Domers after last week's victory?
Notre Dame open minus 13, and it's on its way up. They're sitting at minus 13.5 here. And after a big win like that, and then you also have this feverish fan base that almost blindly bets Notre Dame each week, I could see it going to 2 touchdowns and maybe even higher by Saturday. And Notre Dame has really found its form here, warranting that spread. Since that shaky win over Louisville in Week 7, this offense has been rolling. They're averaging 41 points over the last 3 games, and we've seen Ian Book just blossom under center for this team. Notre Dame they're averaging 276 yards passing over the last 3 games. That's compared to 179.5 yards passing per game in those first 4 contests of the season. So a huge uptick there. You want to couple that with a great offensive line and a stout rushing attack that ranks top 20 in the country. And this Notre Dame team is very, very tough to stop. Now, there is the potential for that letdown spot after a big win, and Boston College has been very competitive this season. They boast a good defense. They put a scare into Clemson in that first game without Lawrence. And then we also have this interesting kind of subplot, too, as you have former Notre Dame QB Phil Yurkovich. He's under center for Boston College here. So if you're betting Notre Dame, I would say bet them now, get them under the 2 touchdowns. Don't wait till Saturday when you're dealing with minus 14 or higher.
Another interesting matchup kicking off at noon on Saturday. The Miami Hurricanes try to stay in the title conversation with a visit to Virginia Tech. The Canes, they've escaped with a couple of close wins in recent weeks. Is another nail-biter in store in Blacksburg?
Well, the odds seem to think so. We're seeing Virginia Tech installed as a slim 2-point home favorite for this weekend. If you look at the history between these programs, the favorites have covered in 5 of the last 6 matchups going back to 2014. The Canes do get an extra day to rest and prepare here. They knocked off North Carolina State on Friday, and De'Ara King just put on another show. 450 yards passing, 5 passing TDs, 105 yards rushing, a partridge in a pear tree. This guy is a one-man offense. And then you got Virginia Tech having to rebound off a loss to Liberty. You may ask, who is Liberty? But pretty solid football program there, playing as an independent. The Hokies, they found themselves in more than one shootout this season, and they've gone over in 5 of their 7 games so far. The total for this high noon showdown at 67.5 points. It's the highest ACC total on the board, the 5th highest total on the Week 11 odds board. However, these teams have gone 11-5-1 to the under in their last 17 head-to-head matchups. And then the forecast for Blacksburg is calling for rain, calling for strong winds. So that could shorten the offense, possibly some miscues and drops along the way. So I could see this one finishing under the total.
Thanks, Jason. Enjoy the games this weekend. And 3 teams we're going to use this week to rest up, recover, and get ready for their next matchups. Clemson, Duke, and Syracuse all have the weekend scheduled off. They'll all be back on the field next week, however, with Syracuse actually playing a day early. They got a game Friday night. And that is it for me from here for now. Thanks for joining us for Playbook. Remember, you can watch a new episode every Thursday night at 7. And until next week, man, get out there, watch some football. Got some great games coming up. See you next Thursday.